Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name's Ivana. If you're new here, if you are not new, thank you so much for coming back. And it is Monday. We are just kind of getting back out into the world, getting back into the news for a new week. If you're like me, you might have checked out this weekend a little bit from the news, but we are back. And I thought that today was a great day to go over some of the newest case numbers for coronavirus across Alabama. We know that we heard from many experts, both locally and nationally, that after Thanksgiving, we were going to see a surge of cases in coronavirus everywhere. And we are no exception to that here in Alabama. So we're going to look at some numbers for the case numbers, the latest today. If you have a question about your county, let us know, and we'll give you the info. So today I am joined by our own data reporter, Ramsey Archibald. Ramsey has made some very interesting graphics and tools that let us easily see where your county stands, how many cases your county has, the rate your county is getting cases at. And if you have been with me for several of these videos, you know sometimes we use that Alabama Department of Public Health map and their dashboard, which is great information, but can sometimes be a little bit clunky to understand if you're just looking at it for the first time. So we're going to use some of Ramsey's maps, and y'all tell me your counties you need to know about. So this is a tool that Ramsey made. Ramsey, I'm going to let you explain this tool while I'll get some of these counties that people want to hear about.
Sure. So basically, this is just a table that includes all 67 of Alabama's counties, and you can see how many cases they've had since March, since the pandemic began. But you can also see kind of where we are at right now. You can see how many cases we're at today, which is actually kind of a low day compared to the previous week, which may be good news. And you can also see the current 7-day averages for each county. And some of them, I mean, we're coming off of a really high week for cases, partially due to some backlogs, but also just high cases. So a lot of these 7-day averages have actually never been higher. Like, for instance, in Jefferson County, which is where I am right now, in Birmingham, the biggest county in the state, at 544, that's the highest 7-day average any county in Alabama has had since the pandemic began. So,
well, and I'm writing down all of the counties y'all are shooting at me, but I'm going to let you know so we can start those in a second. But before we do that, I will say that overnight we had added in Alabama 2,352 cases since yesterday. That means we're at a total of 229 cases since March. I'll repeat that, 272,229 cases since March. So that's where we're standing right now in Alabama for your coronavirus numbers. We did add 3 deaths since yesterday as well. So our total of deaths are 3,892. So I'm going to start going through and showing y'all how this map works. It's really interesting that Ramsey had created for us. So Ramsey, I'm going to search for the counties, and then I'll let you read off the numbers. So first, we're going to go down the row here, and Bill McDonald asking about Blunt. So here is Blunt. Ramsey, can you see those numbers?
Yeah. So Blunt added about 25 cases today, or exactly 25 cases today, which brings their total to 3,324. That 25 cases added today is actually significantly lower than what they've been seeing over the past week or so. Their 7-day average is 46.7 cases, which means they added an average of 46 or really 47 cases per day over the last week. They had no new deaths today, and a total of 46 deaths total since March.
So we're going to go on to Wilcox. I'm just trying to make sure everybody gets their county number. So Wilcox, this one, you only had 2 new cases since yesterday. So that means that you're at a total of 666 cases. So, Ramsey, can you give us kind of a comparison between some of these counties like Blunt, and I know that that's not even a huge county, Alabama, populous county, but then you kind of go down to Wilcox, some of these more rural counties. Mm-hmm. Is that a trend we're seeing, that these rural counties are maybe adding less cases per day?
Yeah, I think especially lately that's been the case. Although when you go up to North Alabama, right now you're seeing a few rural counties add a lot more cases. And I think early in the pandemic, especially that South Alabama, kind of in the Black Belt, which is where Wilcox County is, was seeing a lot more cases based on their population, not total. You would expect these least populous counties to add fewer cases than, say, Jefferson County or, some of these city center areas. But yeah, I think especially this latest surge has really been focused in North Alabama more than South Alabama. And you can see that in those Wilcox County numbers and several other counties in that region.
And we should note, too, that since yesterday, we have seen 5 counties that added their case numbers added since yesterday were in the triple digits. Those were Jefferson, Mobile, Madison, Shelby, and Tuscaloosa. So we do have another really interesting map I want to show you that really focuses since Thanksgiving. So we're going to power through some of these numbers here. Ramsey's going to help me read them off, and then we'll switch to that Thanksgiving map. So Ramsey, we're looking at Baldwin right now. Can you give people who can't maybe read these numbers an update on Baldwin?
Yeah, in Baldwin, for those who don't know, that's on where the beaches are in Alabama and South Alabama. They added 93 cases today, which is pretty low for them for what they've been seeing. Still a high number, almost 100 new cases. It brings their total to just shy of 10,000. They're at 9,821 cases since March, and their 7-day average is at 133. So like I said, that 93 is a little bit lower than what they have been seeing. And Baldwin, so we saw a few backlogs reported last week, and I think I don't have any official report of this, but I think some old cases were added from around the Thanksgiving week on like Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. So that 133 might be a little bit boosted in Baldwin County.
So there is your Baldwin County again, 93 overnight, total just under 10,000 at 9,821. So we're going to move to Etowah really fast here. If I can learn how to type. To Etowah, you added 55 today or overnight. You are at a total of 7,275. Your current 7-day average is 119.4. Ramsey, do you know, I know you've been tracking the data and the way that these cases in these counties rather are trending. Has Etowah been going up, or has Etowah kind of been staying steady?
Etowah right now actually has been going up, and they currently have one of the higher per capita rates over the past couple of weeks, which means that controlling for population, they have one of the larger outbreaks, and they're one of those counties up in North Alabama that has been seeing similar outbreaks. If you don't know, Etowah is where Gadsden is. It's kind of on that 59 corridor, and going up through there and a little bit farther north in Jackson County, we're really start seeing some pretty big outbreaks for those counties' populations.
So we're going to keep, we're going to keep going. I'm trying to see if we have any other North Alabama counties here. We'll kind of try to stick in that area. I know we had a question about Morgan County, and Morgan, you added 90 cases overnight. That brings you to a total of 7,690. And that's kind of a similar number that we saw in Etowah. Ramsey, I know you mentioned a few minutes ago that North Alabama is where we're seeing some of these surges.
Yes, and Morgan is just south of Huntsville. It's where Decatur is. And they've had a bit of a tough stretch, and really Madison County, which is where Huntsville is, that whole 3-county region with Madison, Morgan, and Limestone have been hit kind of hard lately, especially it's a long time ago now, but back in July and before that, Madison kind of avoided the surge that was seen elsewhere in the state, and that does not seem to be the case now. They're getting a fair number of cases in that region right now.
That like you said, North Alabama kind of got that a little bit later than some of the other parts. We saw South Alabama kind of get it, one of the first surges here in the state, kind of get hit hard and fast by COVID. I'm going to look up Mobile now that we're kind of talking about South Alabama. We just touched on Baldwin. Let me look up Mobile County here, which is next door to Baldwin. They added 297 overnight, bringing a total case number since March to 21,166. Is that, sometimes I think, Ramsey, we look at these numbers and we don't know what is the baseline that we're looking at. Unfortunately, in Alabama, we know we have been rising. Our case numbers have been rising. We've heard about that nationally, that we are one of the states where our numbers just keep going up. But sometimes it's hard to look at these independent numbers per county and say, oh, is that good? Is that bad? So what are we looking at in that Mobile County region? How are we trending down there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mobile, actually, that number is really high for them. Or not, like early in the pandemic, that was kind of normal because they had a big outbreak, as you talked about earlier. But lately, their numbers have been a lot lower than that, and almost 300 cases. I mean, you can see their 7-day average at 173.6. That's just a little less than double their average, what they saw today. So that is a high number. But I do warn that in general, you shouldn't take these single day increases as, you shouldn't panic over that, because a lot of times the data is uneven. That's why I like to look at that 7-day average to see kind of where a county really is, because we have seen a lot of data backlogs or errors in reporting, which is bound to happen. We're dealing with a lot of numbers here, a lot of different entities. So one day, so it doesn't necessarily mean that Mobile's peaking and having a huge outbreak. But if that number continues to be high and we continue to see the 7-day average tick up, then we might start thinking along those lines.
I will come in. Somebody, it was Michaela, said she just jumped on and wanted Baldwin again. So those numbers in Baldwin, Michaela, right here, a total of 93 added overnight, at a total of 9,821. So what I'm going to do now is we will come back to that map. I will get you your those county by county numbers, but right now I am going to pull up a different map here that Ramsey also created for us. And it is about the case numbers that have been added since Thanksgiving per county. While I'm working on pulling that one up, Ramsey, why don't you talk about this map and what's different about this map?
Yeah, so really last week, but in the days since Thanksgiving, Alabama has had a really big surge, the biggest one we've ever seen here. I think since Thanksgiving, we've added something like 30,000 new cases in the state. And for reference, I mean, that's more than we saw in the first 3 months of the pandemic combined. And that was when we were shutting the state down. So we're seeing a lot of new cases being added to the system right now. And it's different, by county. Like I talked about earlier, a lot of the new outbreaks are kind of focused in North Alabama, especially controlled for population, which is what you're looking at here. This map shows cases since Thanksgiving per 10,000 people. So it kind of controls for how many people live in each county. If you didn't control for that, you would just see the population centers. Jefferson County, Madison County would pop, and the others would be, it would be hard to tell what their outbreaks look like.
So the darker, the bluish green color here, we're looking at the more cases per capita since Thanksgiving. Is that true?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the counties that we didn't get to in that other graph and show you here, because I think this is really important to see the amount of cases we've had since Thanksgiving here. And then Ramsey also, because these graphs and these graphics are Ramsey's so good at, he also added in here a line of total cases and total deaths. So this is another map that gives us kind of some of the same information we had on that other one, but also gives us that extra look at cases since Thanksgiving. So we'll start on Jefferson. That's where I am right now. Cases since Thanksgiving are over 5,063. So that means per 10,000 people, we've got 76.9 of those coronavirus cases. Ramsey, is this number what we expected to see, or do we think this is going to go up?
I really don't know. I think we expected to see a jump after Thanksgiving. Most of the experts said that we would, and that definitely has happened. So I guess we're about 10 days out from Thanksgiving, and we've definitely started to see a jump. Whether that jump will continue, whether the surge we're currently seeing will continue, I can't say. It does look like, if you look at the state's 7-day average chart, that we've started to flatten a little bit, but that's only over the course of the last 3 days, so it's premature to take any conclusions from that, I think. That number is also a little bit thrown off by those backlogs we talked about earlier. But in Jefferson, I mean, I don't think you can overstate how bad it is in Jefferson right now. As far as looking back at the history, it's never been worse in Jefferson, at least for cases. And we've seen reports that hospitals are filling up in Jefferson County as well, limited ICU beds. And like I said earlier, for those who weren't here, Jefferson County 7-day average right now is higher than any 7-day average from any county at any time during the pandemic in Alabama so far.
Not good news for Jefferson County. And again, if you see the darker the color is on this map, the more cases and the more cases per capita that the county has had since Thanksgiving just a few weeks ago. Now, Jackson is obviously the darkest color here on this map. And Jackson has added 800, and 9 cases since Thanksgiving, which means that cases since Thanksgiving per 10,000 people is at 156.7. Ramsey, people are going to see that number, that 809, and say, well, that's not too bad. So tell us why Jackson is so dark and is not trending well since Thanksgiving.
Right. I mean, it's essentially because Jackson is not a very populous county, but they're adding numbers as if they were. They're adding a lot of numbers for the amount of people that live there, which means that there's community spread going on likely, and it's not a good situation. Now, I saw something on AL.com last week that said a city in Jackson County was one of the highest in the nation, for coronavirus cases. And it's not surprising when you look at this map and you see 156 cases per 10,000 people. That's a really, really high number.
And especially, it's a really high number for the amount of people that live in Jackson County. Not nearly as populated as our Mobile County, our Jefferson County, our Madison County, yet they are adding those cases very rapidly. One of our producers here has added a link to our latest story about the latest coronavirus numbers. You can check that out. And I'm going to leave you all of the links for these maps and where you can find them as well. But before we do that, I do want to look at a couple other counties I've been asked about here. Now, we had some questions about Lauderdale County. Again, one of these North Alabama counties. I've just got to find it. I'm having a geography lesson, I think, today on Alabama, but Lauderdale County here, you are kind of a little bit darker than some of our other counties in that cases since Thanksgiving legend here. That means you've added 695 cases since Thanksgiving. That cases per 10,000 people since Thanksgiving holiday is 74.9. Again, Ramsey, we see it's not quite as bad as Jackson, and maybe not even as bad as neighboring Colbert County, but it's still not good.
Right, it's not. And I would say, to give a little bit of reference here, the state as a whole, the cases per or since Thanksgiving per capita is about 61.7. So Lauderdale is definitely above the state average in that number, sitting there at 74.9 or 75, basically.
Interesting.
And I think Lauderdale and Colbert just south, and really they're following the same trend we're seeing kind of across North Alabama. North Alabama is what is getting hit the hardest right now in this post-Thanksgiving surge.
I got another question about Geneva County. So we'll just do a quick look here at the Black Belt. Now, we talked about earlier, Ramsey, we saw initially the Black Belt get hit again hard and fast here by coronavirus, but those numbers look to have kind of evened up. You can see through this bottom belt here. These are some of the lightest colors we have on this map. And that's good news for the Black Belt.
I think so. I mean, you have to remember also that they did have big outbreaks earlier in the pandemic. One of the lightest colors on here right now is in Bullock County, which I think there was a time when Bullock was among the worst in the state. So if you looked at this map then, they would be the same color as Jackson is now. So this is a moving target kind of thing. And a lot of these counties are really sparsely populated. The Black Belt is the least populated region really in the state. Some of the smallest counties in the state are in that belt. So when they have lots of cases, they really pop because they have a small population. Mm-hmm. And then now they don't have a lot of cases comparatively with the rest of the state.
So we've got Geneva. Somebody asked about Geneva, 111 since Thanksgiving. That's 42.3 per 10,000 people. And again, below that average Ramsey gave us of 61.7, which was that statewide average of cases per 10,000 people since Thanksgiving. So Geneva is definitely in one of those better and less hit counties since Thanksgiving. We had questions about Lee County. Now, Lee County has been a kind of a hot spot from day one. We saw a early outbreak there. And then we also know that some of our counties where colleges and universities lie mean some of those numbers have gone up. But Lee, you're at 500 cases since Thanksgiving, and that rate per 10,000 people is 30.4. So that's pretty good looking at Lee County here. And I think, Ramsey, some people might be a little bit surprised to hear that. But do we know if that could have been affected maybe by students or visitors maybe not coming back to Lee County, to the Auburn campus after Thanksgiving?
That's a great question. Some of the college town numbers are difficult to gauge, kind of because of what you're saying. You have to understand how ADPH collects this data, and they do it by county of residence. So some college students will change their county of residence to the county where they're going to school. If they have housing year round there, it's not uncommon for them to do that. But others may, if you live in Birmingham and go to Auburn, you may list Jefferson County as your county of residence. I think it's not a perfect system, but that's how it's done. So it's hard to say. What you said could be true. It could be people not coming back after Thanksgiving. It could be those cases haven't spread there. It's hard to say.
We will give a look at Montgomery County. We haven't done Montgomery yet. So we will quick look there. And Montgomery County is 806 since Thanksgiving. And again, 35.6 at that rate per 10,000 people. And that's well under that state average of 61.7. Again, Montgomery was one of those places that was hit early on by the pandemic, got a real surge of COVID cases there in Montgomery County, and looks since Thanksgiving to be doing better than a couple other places across the state. Now, we did have a question here on, on Winston County, got one on Houston County as well. So we'll go back a little bit south here, and Houston County, I don't know if you have that one off the top of your head, Ramsey, but here, I found it. You want to give us a look at the Houston County numbers?
Sure. So they've added 481 cases since Thanksgiving for 45.4 per 10,000. That's, again, less than the state average. Kind of similar to that, to all of South Alabama. They're still, that's not to say that these case numbers are low. They're just lower than what we're seeing in North Alabama, which is really driving up the state average. And Houston is actually kind of a population center. That's where Dothan is. So it's not as small as some of the other counties in that region, which is why you see 481 cases, but still a pretty low per capita number.
Going to get a look at a few more of these before we go here. But Ramsey, these maps are great. They're so interactive. And can you tell all of our audience that wants to get a look at these themselves and wants to see their county numbers, how they can do that?
Sure. So if they're not already there, I'll make sure to drop the links to these maps in the comments of this video. And also, typically, I post a lot on AL.com about coronavirus numbers, and I'll have several of these same charts or maps in those stories where you can see them. And if you follow me on Twitter, you can see them too.
So we'll make sure to leave that link to maybe one of your latest story where these maps are embedded in there. And important to note that while you will see them in the story, there is a link under it that Ramsey always provides, and you can click that and it'll take you to a page of just the maps and just the graphs, and then you can play around with it and you can see the different numbers that we're seeing here and that we're showing here. But Ramsey, we will make sure to give everybody a link to those maps. Make sure that people know where they can get them. And again, I'll just give you a quick reminder, everybody. We've got a total of 272,229 coronavirus cases as of today, December the 7th. So if we missed your county and you can't find it, let me know. I will give you all that info. Ramsey or I will make sure that you get it. And Ramsey, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for these maps.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.